Thanks for joining us for the interview of the 2022 candidates for Asheville City Council. I'm Kit Cramer, President and CEO of the Asheville Chamber, and I'm joined by one of our great public policy volunteers, Greg Burnette of First Citizens Bank. This interview will be with candidate Sheneika Smith. All interviews will be posted to the Chamber's website at ashevillechamber.org/2022 elections. Sheneika, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to jump right in with the first question. By 2040, our metropolitan statistical area is expected to have added almost 100,000 people. What do you think is the top priority for how the city should manage that growth?
I think the top priority would be to strengthen our infrastructure. In times past, there weren't a lot of opportunities to fund that strengthening project. But right now, with the bipartisan infrastructure law in place, I believe that there are opportunities for Buncombe County to apply for ways that we can strengthen our infrastructure and transportation networks. And we have a great opportunity to go after those dollars with the right implementation plan.
What role do you see economic development playing in dealing with growth?
Well, with growth and infrastructure planning always comes job opportunities. Along with the infrastructure planning, there are a lot of highway trade jobs coming into our area, and that workforce development undergirds that. So having those job opportunities, the job training ahead of those job opportunities can give us a nice footing, not only in increasing jobs in our area, but also having an equitable job planning and job expansion strategy to go along with that. Because when you talk about highway trade jobs, highways in a lot of communities impacted Black communities and poor communities. So how do we kind of mitigate some of the past and some of the present decimation of communities? You can do that through job creation programs, working with communities to mitigate the footprint of our highways and make sure that we're planning together to ensure that there's an economic kickback for communities through workforce development.
Sheneika, how do you balance policies like increasing density along certain corridors as a way to accommodate additional housing with neighbors who may be uncomfortable with growth and or change within their neighborhoods?
Well, that's an ongoing conversation. Per community, there are different values. Some communities see the benefit of increased density because, they're a part of the bigger vision in making Asheville better. So some of the problems that come along with increasing density, like stormwater runoff and just being very close and not having enough open space in between houses, sometimes that becomes a trade-off. When you look at the future of Asheville and how we have to accommodate neighbors and how we accommodate growth, I think per neighborhood, they'll have to balance what their values are and where the compromise is.
Sheneika, what do you think the role of the business community is in our city?
Well, business, especially in Asheville, being a tourist driver, they're the core of economic development in our city. They're the core of listening to the community, interfacing with community, knowing the needs, knowing the job needs, and what people are looking for, not only on the commerce side, but also on the job side and experience. So I think they're the hands and feet of our community. They express the consumer demands, what they're able to supply, working with economic development arms of our government to give foresight. What do we need to change? what do we need to invest in order to make Asheville's industries meet the economic needs?
In general, where do you get information as to what's going on within our community?
Well, information, because I'm elected currently, there are a lot of different streams. There's a lot of information coming from a federal government, state government, a lot of information coming from staff as they're doing their own line of research and investigation, and just as much information and demanding information from the public, given their interest on different topics. But then, sometimes when you're receiving information, you have to be able to balance and filter that information based on your balance, your wisdom and insight.
As a member of council, what will you do to reach out to the business community to give them a voice?
You're still muted, Sheneika.
The business community here is, thank you, Kit, very organized, and there's a lot of information being passed along to elected officials. I believe that these relationships are strengthened, and they're ongoing. The Chamber of Commerce plays a great role in being that channel, playing that mediatorial role between business community, new business owners, minority business owners, and elected officials, and folks who are in positions of decision-making power.
Sheneika, what's your stance on the issues that are affecting businesses downtown, such as camping and panhandling?
A very complex issue. Asheville is not exempt from issues going on around our nation. And a lot of communities are in the same position that we are in, trying to figure it out. So information is always the carrier of good solution. And right now, I don't think we have enough information about, number one, our homeless community. How do people become homeless in our community? Have we really unpacked that? Or is this transient population, folks who are formerly housed and for whatever economic issue they're becoming homeless? Or, what does our recovery community look like? A lot of people come to Asheville to fight through substance use disorder. And what if that programming goes wrong? Is that causing another influx of homelessness in our community? We need to find out that information so that we can invest in diversion. I believe that if we invest in diversion, I think then we can deal with the present issues and not see that our work is not gaining ground. There needs to be a concerted effort for all neighborhoods concerning homelessness. At one point, I believe the downtown community, because of its proximity to a lot of our homeless services, was getting a lot of foot traffic. But now we're seeing that the foot traffic and encounters and the uncomfortability with our homeless community is that footprint is spreading. So as a community, we have to figure out how we're going to address the issue. Ask ourselves some honest questions. Can Asheville yield enough affordable housing to house folks within the next 5 years? What is the reality here? Do we need to look into relocation programs, working with individuals and families who might have a better chance at stabilizing themselves in another county, in another city, where there's housing, where there's job opportunity, with higher paying wages, with supports that they need. I don't think there is a one solution answer. I think there are multiple, and we all have to come together, business community, neighborhoods, homeless service providers, and come together and have some real conversations and balance our compassion and balance our uncomfortability or anger with the issue, we need to meet in the middle. And I think someone called it compassionate boundaries. Where's that tough love need to be inserted? Where do we need more compassion and more information? It's a dance. And I think we're getting into it, but right now people are angered for whatever reason. And anger is not a core emotion. There are a lot of things going on under anger. But right now, a lot of people are angry at the sight of it. The city and county's response to downtown disturbances, trash, folks sleeping on corners, not being able to manage certain behaviors. So yeah, it's a lot to deal with, but I think we're on the right track. I actually think that we'll see a turn of the tide.
Sheneika, what do you consider City Council's role being in maintaining public safety?
That's one of our core services. Public safety, just like our homeless issue and some other issues that kind of increased during the pandemic, it's a national problem. There's a lot of gun violence across our nation. The police is given astronomical responsibilities outside of their scope that impacts the way that they respond to calls, respond to violence, respond to things that we need them to respond to. And what I mean by that is they're responding to homeless issues. They're responding to issues associated with mental health, substance abuse disorders that's kind of not within their scope. So we're actually taxing them and and they're expending more time and resources on things that should be taken up by specialists and experts. I think we're actually seeing that our public safety in the community is also taking a turn, and we need more solutions. Public safety right now, as far as staffing, is under some constraints, but I do believe that there are some strategies in place so that public safety in our community can increase and folks feel a little safe at home in the community and navigating between, shopping and life. But public safety is a major issue, and it should be everyone's concern, not just elected officials, but we kind of have to take the lead. We need a vision for how to increase safety in our community and come up with a definition of what safety looks like for different folks. It's not all concerning. Safety to a lot of folks is not always concerning response to crime. Safety means sometimes being able to have street lights and paved roads. Safety for a lot of people means a lot of different things, but overall public safety is number one concern. It should be a number one concern of public servants and elected officials.
The most recent version of the Bowen report says that we need more housing at every income level. How can City Council promote more construction of housing?
So it's kind of difficult right now with construction costs being so very high. And Asheville is known throughout the nation for, having high housing costs. But I think we're looking into different housing development models. And one that's been on my radar for some time is the purpose-built model. The purpose-built model allows for different income levels within one housing community to meet folks at the point of their economic need. And that community becomes a nice, cohesive community with a lot of different class of people, working class folks, maybe elderly, families. And those communities grow together. They share amenities together, whether that is a health and wellness center, educational facility, recreational facility, but it's just a way to meet the mixed income need, but also create this community that works well together and understands how to live. in unity.
So Sheneika, in 1 minute or less, what sets you apart as a candidate?
Well, experience. I came in as one individual, very fired up about the condition of our community, more on an activist tip. And not to say that that activism has left or resolved, but now I believe I'm more of a wise and balanced thinker. I appreciate the 5 years that I've been in office, well, nearly 5 years that I've been in office. And we went through a lot of issues during that time. Turnover in city manager, went through the Hickman and Rush, the police involved beating, went through a lot of different changes, and not to mention a pandemic. So with those hard lessons and also just some internal, some soul searching, yeah, I believe that I'm called to another run.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being with us today, Sheneika. As a reminder, you can find the interviews with other candidates at the ashevillechamber.org/2022 elections. And everyone, please be sure to vote in the primaries on Tuesday, May 17th. So Sheneika, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.